Test 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Why do I look?
All right, we'll re-engage. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being patient. We just concluded our executive session. I apologize for the delay. Turning now to the public portion of our meeting, the Open Public Meetings Act statement. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies, at which case any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. And as required under law, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided via email and or fax to the Times, the Lawrence Ledger, the Public Library, and has been filed with the municipal clerk. And this notice was provided prior to the 48 hours required by the Open Public Meetings Act. The board reserves the right to limit public discussion of personnel items and other matters as defined in the law. With that, we will turn to flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Good. This is an exciting time for us. This is our first board meeting since schools have reconvened, and we are lucky. We have our first student representative report for the year. Welcome.
Who's up?
I'm Jack Cosentino, and I'm going to start off by talking about homecoming. And so today was the day where we started selling homecoming tickets. Over 360 tickets have been sold today, and there was an overwhelming amount of people, which did cause some issues because certain seniors believe in senior priority because this is their last year, and they may not be able to get another homecoming next year because they will be gone. And just making it a little more organized because some seniors and some people actually lost their lunch because of waiting in line for a very long time, but luckily administration was able to divide the two lines, and they had two separate things to make things go faster. And starting tomorrow, seniors vote on homecoming royalty, and so I believe that goes out at 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., so during the school day. And the homecoming game is September 25th. As for getting back and adjusting back into the school climate, many students are actually very appreciative of the extra minute when it comes to changing classes. Because we are in classes for 77 minutes, I do believe it is important that we do have the time to kind of walk around and get more adjusted back to the school.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anna Kolometskaya. I'm a senior at LHS, and I will be talking to you about sports updates. So first up, we have the cheer team. They recently attended the Pine Forest Summer Camp, and they won first place in their category, winning a second award for their character and spirit. Next is girls tennis. They won their first game of the season, and they have another game today, actually. Boys soccer has their senior night today. The cross-country season was off to a great start. Melinda J., Liz Claros, and Sarah Kawar have really been helping to push the team forward. And field hockey has won all three of their games. Talia has already managed to score 23 goals. Good for her.
Hi, I'm Bella, and I'll be talking about the pep rally and the theater mixer from today. First off, we had the theater company mixer and interest meeting after school, and we had a great turnout. It was outdoors, we provided some food, and people got to learn information about upcoming events and joining the theater company. People were pretty engaged, it was a fun time, and we had more participants in our games than we've probably had in a lot of years. Also, the successes of the pep rally last week, I heard people talking about it for days after. People were really excited about the games, everyone had fun, and Madrigal got to perform even though it was their first day learning the piece. So overall, it was pretty much a success.
Yeah, and in addition to theater, a lot of other clubs are starting to get up and running. For example, Students for Social Activism, who's meeting at the end of September. I know Arts and Humanities is meeting tomorrow. They're having an interest meeting tomorrow after school. And there's going to be a car wash for DECA on Saturday, I believe from 9 to 1. Also, regarding food in the cafeteria, everyone really, really appreciates the free lunches and the vegetarian options especially. I know people really appreciated that it was free, and also they offered different, for people with different dietary restrictions and stuff. I think there was a lot of people were also speaking about how they wished it would be more sustainable because there was a lot of packaging being used and stuff, and making sure that recycling bins and stuff like that are very accessible throughout the cafeteria. Yeah. Oh, I'm Sophia and I'm a junior. I don't know if I said that.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I have a quick question. Are students taking part of the breakfasts also?
I am not aware of that, actually. Yeah, I don't know.
I'd love to hear if they are, what they think about those also, because those are also provided for students. Just wondering, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
More than welcome to stay, but otherwise, if you have other things to do, we're certainly happy to have you. But thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
To see you. I do, look at that, you saw it. Great, we're going to slide to the left.
Okay. Were you?
Okay now. Conflict, growth and economic development committee meeting is at 7
Okay.
tonight, so.
All right.
You're here.
Great, thank you again. To our students, recognitions and acknowledgements.
Yes. Good evening. I first want to recognize that we, again, have our board attorney, Jod Comegno, here joining us today. We also have Amanda Santos, who will be a future board member. We're just waiting for some of the paperwork to get finalized, but she's joining us via the audience today, but hopefully will be sworn in and sitting up with us by our October meeting. I also really want to thank everyone, from our students to our families, our staff, and our Board of Education, for supporting a very successful start to the beginning of this school year. It's truly wonderful to have our students back in school for full days, 5 days a week, and it really took effort for everyone to make it a reality. In particular, I want to recognize Susan Ullman and the Transportation Department for getting our students to and from school so effectively and safely. It's always crazy the first couple of days, but no different than any other year, and it's really great for their efforts to get our kids here and home safely. I also want to thank Mary Beth DiLorenzo and the food services for their efforts to provide lunch and breakfast for anybody that wants it. It's been a smooth process, and the selections have been fantastic from what I hear from the kids. Stephen Prentice and our technology team for ensuring all technology was ready for our staff and students as they entered on the first day. Michelle D'Angelo in her role as the LTA president and her efforts to collaborate and plan for a successful safety welcome back for our staff and our students. It's never been as challenging for our school nurses, and I really want to thank them for their efforts of already contact tracing, making sure we're keeping our students safe, and really checking on the well-being of our entire students and staff. If you noticed when you came in today, I want to thank our custodians, our maintenance workers, our facility staff for their efforts to have our buildings clean, safe, ready, and really looking fantastic to welcome everyone back. And then finally, an extra shout out and thanks to Matt Conley and Tom Eldridge. They worked tirelessly, especially over Labor Day weekend, to ensure that we could open every single one of our buildings and make sure that they were safe and ready to go for our staff and our students. So let's give them all a round of applause.
Yes.
Things are changing so quickly, and it often seems that there's a new obstacle every hour. It really takes a team effort, and I could not be more proud of the start that we've had with our team and to be part of Lawrence Township School District. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other recognitions and acknowledgements? Seeing none, we'll move on to the adoption of our minutes. These are the executive session and regular session minutes from our August 25th, 2021 meeting. If there are no changes or corrections, if somebody would like to move those.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And Tom, whenever you're ready.
A motion made by Ms. Farmer, or Ms. Scott? Ms. Scott, thank you. Seconded by Ms. Evans.
Good.
Okay. Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Farmer?
Yes.
Mrs. Grover?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Van Hise?
And I abstain, I was absent from that meeting. So,
Motion carried.
thank you. Reports to the board, superintendent's report.
Sure. As I previously stated, it really has been fantastic to have all our students and staff in school back 5 days a week. And that's our goal. Our goal is to safely keep our schools open for in-person learning for full days, 5 days a week for all of our students. Even in these short few days, though, it is clear that positive COVID cases and quarantining will be challenges that we have to deal with for the foreseeable future. When we learn of a positive case, we immediately begin the contact tracing process, which all of our nurses are certified in. Close contacts, as defined by the CDC, will be personally contacted via phone call. If a person is vaccinated, that person is not a close contact. If students are wearing masks properly in a classroom and come into close proximity with a positive student who is also properly wearing a mask, that student is not a close contact. We ask every family to continue to monitor their children at home, and if they're sick, don't send them to school. As well as things have gone, we've had a few positive cases and some quarantining. We knew this coming back, and we knew that there would be some other challenges. And that's why we took extra time, and we will continue to focus on building relationships and support the social and emotional well-being of our students and staff. Enhancing social and emotional learning, or SEL, is a work in progress. And it's apparent that it's more important than ever. As many students and people in general have not been in social situations, they haven't been in settings with other people, they have not had to interact, and as most people were stuck home, often isolated because of COVID, learning to socialize again and interact is a work in progress. I am really proud of the way our staff, our students, and our community handled the incidents that happened this weekend. We surely can't control everything that goes on, but we can control how we act, we react, and we respond. Both at the Ewing football game and finding the written letter left at Slackwood, we acted quickly. We reviewed each incident and took them very seriously. We erred on the side of caution, and we put our student and staff safety first. I want to thank the Lawrence Police Department for collaborating with us and acting swiftly to ensure that our students and staff were safe and that there was no danger. We will continue to focus on SEL and work to build strong relationships with our students and our staff, as we truly want every person in our district to feel a sense of belonging. In a few minutes, Clifton will share more about our efforts for that sense of belonging and why it's so important for our schools and our community. We look forward to our back-to-school nights and giving parents an opportunity to meet their child's teachers and learning more about what we're doing in our schools. But please, if you have questions before then, don't wait. Partner with us. Reach out to your teacher, reach out to your school, and have them answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Board Secretary's report.
I want to echo some of what Russ said, in fact, most of what Russ said, and thank our transportation staff, our food service staff, our custodial and our maintenance staff, as well as the tech people, the support staff who made opening possible. And then I'd like to extend that out and invite the board and anybody who'd be willing to go see some of the fantastic things that are happening right now. I just want to state that in the middle of what is often a stressful situation, there are really unique things happening. In 2005, we had a dream when we built the commons area that students would be sitting outside under the veranda, and that students would be in the 300 ring where it jogs, and we called that the grotto. And it had always been the intent to use the building in this way. And when you walk around Lawrence High School today at lunchtime, you see students spread out like a college campus, and they are interacting with one another, mostly social distanced, and they would make you proud. Lawrence High School at lunch looks like a family as kids sit together and they're laughing and smiling. And since it's lunchtime, no one's wearing a mask because they don't need to. And it is truly something to be seen. And then I'd like to also, you could of course go to any of our elementary schools, but to see the alternate arrangements that are happening at the middle school, to see that the auditorium like this, the first 5 rows were taken out and there's tables there for 50 kids where they can sit there, and if they're not comfortable there, they can eat lunch in the library. They can eat lunch, of course, inside of the regular lunchroom, but there's also seating outside as well. So we've taken what could be a stressful situation and turned it into something that's quite fun. I've also had the pleasure of looking and seeing what's happening, and Jay helped me with this and witnessing lunch at Ben Franklin, and things are going very smoothly across the board. And one of the things that's amazing is to see what happens at the high school and the menu that Linda Delavic and Mary Beth DiLorenzo have put together. And it wasn't a matter of, can we do this? It was always, yes, we can. Not to sound like Bob the Builder, right? But to see at what level they were going to do it. And Mary Beth had it in her mind that it was going to be excellent. And so, again, I'd invite anyone to come in and see what our students are experiencing. And it had a lot to do with the principals of the schools, making sure that the logistics were there. And they had been planning this out for months and making last-minute changes to their schedules, in their instructional schedules. And it's just a fantastic thing to see them bond with their students. I mean, you could have seen it in any year, but this particular year is something to be seen. And so, again, many thanks to everyone, the maintenance staff, the custodial staff, the food service people, the transportation, and certainly the principals for working with all of those people to make sure it got pulled off. And they were the nerve center to make sure it looked the way they needed it to look at their schools. And I hope that they feel the same way about what they see. And so to the young lady who talked about sustainability, we had to do the clamshells, meaning the takeout containers, so that we could serve food and stay away from a serving line and things of that nature. We always wanted to go back to the regular line, so to speak. But it was interesting. I went into the high school and I was timing the students going through the line to see what it took. And so Mary Beth DiLorenzo was at one of the cash registers, and so I waited, and the first person came in, and there was about 8 behind her, the first young lady. And I started my timing from the last person in line, and I was averaging somewhere of 40 seconds before that last person went through the register and out. So they were moving pretty quickly, and it was impressive. And everything else I'll defer to the Finance Committee.
Great, thank you. And as for Board's President's report, I just want to echo certainly what Ross and Tom said, and on behalf of the board, extend the board's thanks to all of our staff members, administration, custodial staff, transportation, and in particular, we just have the best people that are so committed. I even just, shooting a couple emails off when I get home on Friday nights at 10:30 at night, and Nishaya's answering me back, and, it's just crazy. And, everybody's got families, and yet they are so committed to getting our buildings open to make sure that things operate so smoothly, and even through the weekend, communicating back and forth with Ross. Tom's running around and making sure all the equipment is in all of the rooms, and that is just indicative of the commitment that our staff and employees and everybody brings to this district for our students. So please, accept our board's appreciation for all the efforts that you do and everybody in our district. So,
Go team. Thank you.
With that, we will turn to our committee reports. Community Relations, which Michelle King.
Yeah, Community Relations did not meet as scheduled originally on the 9th. We have rescheduled that to September 23rd.
Very good, thank you. Negotiations, we did not meet and have no report. For our Equity Committee, unfortunately, Michelle Bowes was unable to be here this evening, but we do have Clifton Thompson here for us, and turn it over to you.
Good evening. My name is Clifton Jerry Thompson III. I was named after my father and grandfather. And after the 4th grade, until about the time my son turned 9, I went by Jerry. At 9 years old, he came to me and he said, "Daddy, I wish I was Little Jerry." I said, "Well, you can go by Little Jerry." He said, "Nope, you made my middle name Jeremiah." I said, "Ugh." "Well, you can still go by Little Jerry." He said, "No, my name is Jeremiah." I said, "Well, you can be Little Cliff or Little Clifton." He said, "You tell people your name is Jerry. You don't go by Cliff or Clifton." I said, "Well, here's what I'll do. I will, from now on, introduce myself as Cliff or Clifton, and you can become Little Cliff or Little Clifton." And that's what he's been since that time. So what I just did was share a personal story about myself with you. And when we learn personal stories about ourselves and each other, we create a community where we belong to and we value each other. And so that's one of the things we did with our new teachers and our teaching staff, was we got them to share their stories. And that's because we know that belonging matters. I love this quote by Ron Edmonds: "We can, whenever and wherever we choose, successfully teach all children whose schooling is of interest to us." We already know more than we need to do this. Whether we do it or not must finally depend on how we feel about the fact that we have not done it so far. I love this quote because it speaks to the power and knowledge we have as educators. It's saying we know what to do, but it challenges our desire and our resolve to do it. Because sometimes doing what we know to do is difficult. Sometimes we have to make decisions that really put children first and maybe sometimes put adults second. That many people don't like the decision, but it's the right thing to do to create wholesome, safe, caring environments for our children. So what do we know? We know that belonging matters. We know as adults, when we're in spaces where we belong, where we feel like we're accepted, where we can be our authentic selves, we perform better. And so that same thing happens in the classroom with children. If they belong in that school, if they feel like they belong in that classroom, they will learn and achieve at heights that we can't even imagine. But when they don't feel like they belong, just like adults, they can't perform well. When they don't feel like they belong, like no one cares for them, they can't learn the content that's being taught. So what we have to do is we have to help our teachers to understand what creates a classroom where children feel like they belong, and what happens in classrooms where they don't. And so the through line for all that we're going to do from my department is that belonging. Is going to be how we create those spaces, how we make sure our children show up to school and want to be there. And one of the ways we did that, we do it with wordlets. So we'll ask a question: what's it feel like when you belong? And people will write a word, and they'll create a word picture. And so as we help teachers, that's something they can take back to their classrooms and just do as part of a strategy. So as we present, normally we would do activities that teachers can also then use as best practices to help their children become engaged and involved. And it wouldn't just be me talking like I am tonight. So I'm not really comfortable doing this part of it, because I would want all of us to get involved. I would want to share your names. I would want you to put what it feels like when you finally felt like you belonged on the board. Because I'm sure when you first got elected and sat there, it was like, all right, I got elected. Am I supposed to really be here? And then once you felt like you belonged, you probably behaved differently. We're more comfortable in making decisions. We're more willing to speak out. And so what we want is that from our students. We want them to speak out in their classrooms. We want them to say who they are. And so what's one of the things educators can do? One of the first things you can do is you can learn your children's names, and you can say them correctly. And by correctly, I mean how they want you to say their name. So I was a first-year teacher, and I had a student, and I read her name off of the roster, Annataiza. And I proudly said, Anastasia. And she said, my name is Anastasia. I said, well, I'll go to the registrar because they spelled it wrong on the paper. And she said, well, how'd they spell it, Mr. Thompson? I said, Annataiza. There's no S. She said, that's my name, Anastasia. I said, but baby, there's no S. She said, my name is Anastasia. I said, okay, Anastasia. And I never said another word about it. I didn't know what I was doing until she thanked me for not making it a big issue like other teachers had, spending the whole year trying to tell her that they needed to put an S in her name to get that sound. And I realized that I did something, did not know what I was doing. I just didn't want to argue with the 7th grader who I was a little scared of because she was tough. But if we pronounce our students' names the way they want it, if we call them what they want, maybe they don't like their name and they want to be called CJ, or they want to be called Jerry even though on the register it says Clifton. Do what we have to do because the point of them being there is the learning, it's the achieving. And if we can call them something that makes them proud, well, let's do that. So in our new teacher orientation and with our teachers, we spoke about that as being one of the first things you can do as a teacher to say, Enrique, Yahir, I had it, Dewan. If we say their names, then they know they start to belong. And guess what? We don't need to use critical race theory to do that. We don't need to use critical race theory to create classrooms and spaces where people feel like they belong, where people feel like they're one, because really critical race theory is a high-level law school, college concept that maybe in a high school law class you may touch upon. And by touch upon, I mean like on a Wednesday, you talk about it real quick and you don't mention it again for the rest of the semester. So that's not teaching something for someone to learn. But that's being taught just like any other theory would be in that law class. But other than that, it's not something you're going to teach to a 3rd grader. The concept is really too high level. And teachers aren't taught what critical race theory is. So they then can't teach it to someone else. It's not in the curriculum. So therefore, they're not teaching it. And the good thing is they don't have to teach it for us to create spaces where children feel like they belong. So we're done with that. We want our children to come to school and be who they are. Show up with the identity that they are, whether that identity is involved with their religion, with their race or ethnicity, with their gender identity, their gender expression. With whomever they choose to show up in that classroom, that person has to not be tolerated, but be accepted. So we have to move past teaching tolerance and move to teaching acceptance. Because in our shrinking global society, our students have to learn to accept others for who they are and value that person in order to be successful. And when that's modeled by our teachers in the classroom, our children feel like they're valued and they can be their authentic selves. And they can come to school with purple hair and pink shoes and stars. And I did this by mistake. I got a phone, and the only case they had sparkles on it. And I was like, well, I need a case because I'm clumsy. I'll drop it. I'll break it. It costs too much. Yeah, I'll take the one with sparkles. And the guy looked at me and said, are you sure? And I'm thinking, yeah, it's a case. Well, it's a case. It's got sparkles. I think it's kind of cool. And I've been asked 6 times, because I counted, whose phone do you have? And I'm like, mine. And I'm not understanding why people are asking me the question. It's because the phone has sparkles. Well, luckily, I make myself feel like I belong wherever I go, because I learned I can be my best self if I at least feel like I belong, whether you accept me or not. So I'm good with my sparkly case. But that kid that's being daring, let them feel like they belong with the sparkly case by not questioning why they have one, but saying, hey, that's a cool case, I like it. And so we talk to our teachers about doing that. And one of the things we have to let our teachers know is that we all have this implicit bias. And so we could create a story about every picture up there. Really, that's based upon our implicit bias. Because we feel some kind of way about that person and how they look. We judge whether we think that person has a lot of formal education. We judge whether we would want them to be our friends. We judge whether we would invite them to our houses. And we don't know those people. We're just looking at a picture on a screen. And Bruce Lipton, an American developmental biologist, posits that that's because we received messages from birth to 7 that have informed our beliefs that lay in our subconscious. Meaning, when we don't think about it, that's how we judge the people. And he says that most of the time our brain works in that state of subconscious because it's easy. It's easy just to respond based upon beliefs that have been given to us from the time of birth to 7. But if we're teachers, if we're educators, we have to change that. And we have to be purposeful that the person that comes in with the do-rag holding her hair is as valuable, is as smart, is as intelligent as the person that comes in with glasses and a shirt and tie. And so we help them to understand that we all have these implicit biases that show up in our subconscious, that we're going to be more conscious about what we think and what we do and how we do it. And the one thing I've learned is that we all have it. So it's not pointing anyone out and saying, you have it and I don't. You're bad and I'm good. No, we all have it. And we all have to take the time to be conscious about it and what we do. And some have more practice than others. Some are better at it than others. But just being more conscious about what we do, what we say, and what we think. Because really, many times, our conscious thoughts and beliefs are in opposition to our implicit bias because we know better. So we just have to spend more time in that space. And that's what we also let our teachers know. So that when a student walks into class or when the student comes to school and they arrive without a coat in the winter, we don't automatically think something about them. When they walk instead of get a ride, we don't automatically think something about them. When the car they ride in squeaks, like my truck did, and my daughter said, can you drop me off a block away? And I'm like, no, you'll just deal with this squeak. We don't automatically think something about them. And so we talk about implicit bias. And what we'll continue to do is talk about the different things that will help our teachers create spaces that create that belonging and stop doing things that get rid of the belonging. So we'll talk about microaggressions. We'll talk more about a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. We'll develop and introduce protocols that help to reduce policies, procedures, and lessons that create systems that cause disparity before they happen, along with reviewing those policies, procedures, and lessons that we already have on the books. So that is what we'll do, and the committee decided that at at least one of the board meetings a month, we'll go over a concept so that the board and the community knows what the teachers are doing in the classrooms as far as their own learning. So just because the teacher learned about implicit bias doesn't mean they're going to the 8-year-old and saying, you have implicit bias and grandpa taught you something that we don't believe anymore. No, it's about the adults so that we can learn and create spaces that are better for our children. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Cliff, if I have a question for you, Cliff. So you presented all of this information to our new teachers, all of our teachers. You did it via YouTube. You did it in different class or different buildings.
So
How'd
at
it
the
go?
new teacher orientation, Dr. Fisher, Dr. Williams, Mr. Billy, and I presented to the new teachers.
Excellent.
The Equity Warriors, and we're going to think about trying to adjust that name a little bit. The Equity Warriors, they presented on day 1 to the staff after receiving some facilitation training from Val and Rebecca, which I can never remember their vendor name, but Val and Rebecca is how everybody tends
That's
to
how we know them by
refer
Val and Rebecca.
them.
And it's not Rebecca and Val either. It's always
No, it's Val and Rebecca, yes. So Val and Rebecca, which, again, without knowing exactly what they were doing, because we had a hiccup as far as getting together, it lent itself to talking about belonging and the implicit bias that creates a sense of not belonging. So that was then done with all the teaching staff in the building through the Equity Warriors on the day after the rain.
Yeah, okay.
So they were pretty good.
Yeah. Well, on behalf of the Community Relations Committee as well, we're very excited to have you show up at each of our board meetings and offer 15, 20 minutes of what's going on from your perspective. So
Well,
thank
hopefully
you.
it's a bit of everyone's perspective. I do get a little nervous when I hear you're the expert. It's like, ugh. No one knows everything about this. No one has the purest of thoughts, the purest of heart, and the understanding of what someone else comes to. So it's about who's willing to listen and learn from each other.
Great.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
That's a tough committee report to follow, so I will open it up to guidance and mental health. That's traditionally Michelle's committee, but I don't know if there's any report from any of the other members. No, we'll grab that next time. So we have school boards. Joanne?
Okay. New Jersey School Boards report. I don't know if you all had an opportunity to open up your email from New Jersey School Boards. The executive director, Larry Feinsod, released a work, Rebuilding Opportunities for Students is the name of the research group. And it's about part of a pandemic series that you may have looked at. This report examines the challenges facing school districts as they assess the impact of the pandemic on our local school communities, developing effective programs to overcome any gaps in learning, and to use this period of adjustment as an opportunity to ensure that the academic progress and social-emotional growth of all students is going to occur and how. This report is now available at the website. It's like 78 some odd pages filled with amazing input from college, university, to superintendents, board members. So I highly recommend you taking a peek at it, because I would just skimmed it a little bit today, and I'm proud to say that we're doing a lot of the things that they're already suggesting, but there's always room to interpret the information and to use it for our district. I'll move to Mercer County Community School Board meeting. As I sent an email out earlier today, it is September 30th, I believe, a virtual meeting, and the topic is board meetings during critical times. And as I suggested, if you register, the cool thing is you get to enjoy the meeting at the comforts of your own home. It is virtual. Shall I move to LTEF? Sure. Okay. If you hadn't already noticed, it is the 30th year anniversary for LTEF. And I attended the September 9th meeting that began at 6:30 in the Tech Center. And it was really nice to see people in person. All but 4 attended in person. And I have to send a thank you to Andrew Zuckerman. He queued up the Neat board, so we actually got to use it, see it. And it was amazing how great they could hear us. We could hear them. So that was exciting. But there are things to look out for, and I kind of suggested that people take a look at the back-to-school nights. The LTEF is going to do their little presentation that they used to do in the gymnasiums, the auditoriums, and Karen said she has masterminded it down to 2 minutes, so everybody can enjoy seeing what LTEF does for our schools. So please take a look at that. And many thanks to our staff and administration for writing and applying for so many grants over the summer. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not terrible, because you get a lot of support if you want to do it, but the creativity comes from these awesome people. So I just wanted to give them a big shout out and a thank you. And to the rest of us, please consider making a donation to LTEF. As you know, we start out the school year and they start out their drive to set us up for the whole school year. If you haven't already done so, the foundation touches every child in our district. So when you see the smiling faces of the students and staff members, you're a part of that when you make the donation. So please consider. And also I want to do a big shout out to Bristol Myers Squibb and Lawrenceville for supporting LTEF. They make large donations to support, and it's wonderful to know that our community is behind this. And dates to put on your calendar. Trivia night has now gone only virtual, which is, again, great. You get to do this from your own home. Tickets go on sale Friday, October 8th. and they are $25 per household. You can team up with people in other locations, too. Visa gift cards, prizes for top 3 winners. Here's the one I love. The best team name gets $50, so be creative. This will be a fall-themed event, lots of giveaways, looking for individuals and businesses to sponsor. And also, handbag bingo, I think I shared that before, is tentatively set. We're going forward with Rider University on February 25th. And I'll jump to, well, actually, if you want, I'll do a direct link too.
Sure.
We didn't meet, make that easy.
Very good. Thank you.
You bet.
Town Council, I don't believe we have a report this evening. Growth and redevelopment. That's Greg.
Yes, Growth and Redevelopment was meeting tonight, so I guess I'll report next month.
You can't be in 2 places, huh?
Yes.
And with that, we have partnership.
Yes, actually, for partnership, the ECV, Every Child Value, I actually met with the board of directors this evening, so I will have a report next week. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. VOTEC, Joyce?
VOTEC is in the midst of reorganization because the superintendent has left, so they have an acting coming on board. So.
Very good. Thank you. Special education.
No report tonight from special education.
Great. Thank you. Review of communications.
There are none.
None? Very good. We'll turn to our first opportunity for public input. We'll just ask that you come up to the podium, give us your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, but we'll invite whoever wishes to come up first.
Hi, my name is Tina Cobb. You also wanted the address?
Yes, please.
2131 Brunswick Pike. I have 2 children in the district, one at LMS and one at LIS, and I'm voicing my concern over my son's bus at LIS. It is bus I-25, and there's a huge problem that has been an ongoing issue because my oldest that's now at LMS, I had the same issue, and it wasn't really addressed. My son is on the bus for over an hour. It is slowly being worked on. He's getting home, the first few days of school was 5 o'clock. He gets out at 3:15. And for any student, let alone a special needs student, that's kind of unacceptable. My biggest concern is academics. Coming home that late, he's being told he can't have snack like his brother. He needs help because of his developmental delays, so he has less time for his homework. He's trying to do violin, so he'll have hardly any time to practice, and study time. Bedtime comes very quickly, and he's being told he has to walk in the door, and eat dinner right away. That's unfair to any student. He doesn't get his free time to be a kid. And I believe that all students should have the opportunity to have that downtime after school to unwind from the school day. My kids both love school, and to have that cut off from them, from being on the bus for over an hour, is just totally unacceptable. And I really hope that in the very near future that this bus can get split into 2. That's what my concern is.
Great, thanks. Tom, do you want either?
Can I respond?
Please, yeah.
I'll reach out to you tomorrow, and I want to know more about this, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
So I agree. I don't want anyone on a bus for more than an hour, although in some cases when we have to drive long distances, that does occur. But this is a bus route that I believe stays in town. And so I know in the first couple days that even though the dismissal was right around the 3:20 time, some of the buses never even left the school until after 4 o'clock, well after.
And I totally understand that the first week or 2 is getting used to that bus route.
Yep.
But knowing that this has happened from my oldest son,
Yep.
I really can't have this happening for my youngest, who's having major issues with just reading alone.
I'll reach out to you tomorrow. You'll get a call from me, and we'll stay in contact until we get something better for you.
Great, thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
And does Tom have your, Tom, do you have her contact information?
I will get your.
Okay, I was going to say, if you could just write that on a piece of paper or something, and we'll get that. Yeah, okay,
We've got it.
great, thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. President, I just have a concern that I would like to see these problems resolved before the parents come and complain. It does seem concerning that the special needs kid is having this difficulty. Is there a way, is there something set in place so that parents can get the assistance prior to coming to the board and setting forth these types of complaints?
There is a process that's in place, and I think, Ross essentially alluded to it at the beginning of the meeting, and we encourage all of our parents, if you have these issues, especially in the first week, reach out to your teachers, reach out to your principals. In this case, as a transportation issue. I know Tom, Sue has been addressing fielding phone calls and that sort of a thing, and so we would encourage people, because it's not really possible for the board to actually do anything in these circumstances, but we know our staff is working to address those. So we would encourage all the parents to actually, communicate with the appropriate staff members beforehand, so.
Yeah, I just, to respond to Mr. Johnson, when people come up to the Board of Ed to speak to the board, it doesn't necessarily mean that they've gone through a process that it's ever been heard. I had no knowledge of this particular bus being this late. And so a complaint may have been made with the transportation department. And so the first thing I'm going to do tomorrow is say, hey, do you know of this concern? And what are you putting into place to address it? And I'm going to listen to that person to see if a complaint was made. Now I'm going to expedite that, not because they came to a board meeting, but because I'm aware of it. And so I think it would be inaccurate to presume that someone comes to the board as an appeal because they weren't satisfied through the regular chain. It could be that they just come to the Board of Education because this is where they want to make their first appeal on some things, and we've seen that any number of times. But I indeed will follow up tomorrow. Now, people have come to the board, for example, when we've changed walking distances and things of that nature, and we have spoken to those folks prior to their arriving at the board. And when they understand that things like that are policies of the board as opposed to administrative decisions, at that point, indeed, the board would be the right place to go, that we couldn't settle them out administratively. In this particular case, I will certainly reach out, and if you wish, I'll let you know what the outcome is.
Yeah, please, great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And I agree with that, and that's why when I began, don't wait to back to school night to share your concern with a principal or a teacher. Don't wait to the conferences to talk to your teacher about progress. If you're concerned, please call us, please reach out. I find everyone in our district to be very responsive, very open, but we need to know the problems, we need to hear from you and not wait for a board meeting or a conference or something like that. Let us help you now, because we can fix things and make them better when we know about them.
And one of the things, just to case in point, Kevin, you were at the meeting. Mr. Johnson, you were at the meeting too, with the Finance Committee. And so recently brought the finance pepper. I'm going to steal your thunder since you'll report on it anyway. We had said that we changed the walking distances, and can we assist people who are now walking to school, the transportation busing distances. Can we assist those folks who once received a bus but now no longer receive a bus? And so we never did give up on that problem. We are still pursuing that problem, and it was brought to finance what our method would be. But meanwhile, while we're looking to create a policy, which was or an accepted method of addressing that, which was last week, we never stopped communicating with people about what we were doing, how we were doing it, and how we were going to pursue a resolution for them. And so, yeah, we don't stop until we find that we can't go any further. And then when we do find that we can't go any further, I bring it back to the committee and say, this is what I can do. How else would you like me to proceed? And then I do bring it back to the board as the ultimate forum for governance in terms of deployment of resources with a recommendation. So no, please Some folks will come to the board and will certainly voice grievances, but please know that we always try to address them at the lowest level and not allow them to get to you.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? Hello.
Good evening. My name is Catrice Leonard. I live at 129 Drift Avenue. And I do apologize if you answered this question at a previous meeting, but what is in place if a child does test COVID and they have to stay home, and the contact tracing, they have to stay home also? Is there a virtual option for them, or are we just sending work home for them to do?
That's a great question, and it's something that we talked a lot about with the administrative team, really worked diligently to come up with a plan, because there are going to be those cases in the foreseeable future. We've already experienced some. So those students, after 24 hours, will be given a Zoom link to watch and join the class virtually and be part of the lessons. It's a little bit different than last year because, again, we want to focus on the students that we have here. However, they will still be able to watch the class, be part of the class, get the content, and we are taking it one step further. And for those students, and again, we really hope that it would be a 10-day time period that they're out, but it could be longer. So we're offering almost like a virtual tutoring for them at night, and they can join on with a teacher, and if they had questions on the lesson, so it isn't necessarily their teacher, but they can get support and help in work that they don't understand, ask questions, and get extra tutoring at night. And we're still trying to roll that out. We just posted it for our teachers, and we'll have that up and running soon.
And that Zoom link, that's live class, or not just, or is it previously recorded?
They'll be joining the live class and watching with the rest of the students as it's taught synchronously.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Krista Gervon, 80 Stonecker Drive. I just wanted to get up. I didn't have a plan to talk tonight, but being that we talked about busing, I just wanted to let everyone know that I had a busing issue, and I still do, but Tom has been completely helpful and responsive and has not stopped the entire time I've been working on this issue. So he, whatever he just said, it's completely true. He's going to try to help, and thanks, Tom, for your continued efforts.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on to board discussion and work session items, which we have none this evening, so we'll turn to another opportunity for public inputs. And seeing none, we'll move on to our board discussion and action items. Personnel Committee, Joanne.
Okay. We did meet, and we met on the 8th at 8:15 and met roughly about an hour. And we had Sean, Kevin, Michelle Bose, Pepper, and myself in attendance. And a lot of these items that I wrote up after our meeting have been taken care of, but so I'll just kind of skim through them. Interviewing for social studies position at the high school, English as a second language replacement at the high school, long-term sub is in place. Leave replacement at the high school, job postings, staff vaccinations, which awesome, go team. Update from LTPSA administrative transitions, that's moving forward in a quick pattern because of amazing people that are running this whole thing and getting people background checks and release times, so that's moving at a warp speed. And our equity update was awesome tonight. Thank you, Clifton. That was what we talked about too. And we also discussed the upcoming calendar for 22-23. And Pepper requested us to take a peek at the impact of the calendar on our vocational student schedules. And we also talked about spring break and where it lands in different districts in Mercer County. And policy issues, 1643, family leave, and policy 1648.13, school employee vaccination requirements. No changes or recommendations, excuse me, were recommended. And, sorry, my voice is just going crazy here. If you look on the agenda tonight, you will see one retirement, Patricia Levecki, teacher at Ben Franklin, and I thought this was interesting, 16 years and 10 months. I would have said 17. But anyway, we wanted to thank her for being an outstanding educator. Her specialty has been in speech language arts, and her gift was guiding students beautifully. So we thank her so much for her years of service to our district, and you must enjoy your retirement and just come back and tell us how great it feels. You'll also see some resignations, several appointments that were pending background check and finger clearances, approvals for leaves of absences, leave replacements, salary adjustments due to credits earned, substitute appointment approvals, student workers for District Media Center, go Tom. And with all of that, I'd like to move P1 through P30.
Is there a second?
Second.
And with a motion and a second, Tom, whenever you're ready.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Farmer?
Yes.
Mrs. Grover?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Van Hise?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. CIAPD, Tricia?
Okay. CIPD met on August 31st at 8:15. Present were Michelle Bose, Pepper Evans, Ross Kasem, Andrew Zuckerman, and myself. We discussed the coming school year, speaking of students being in full days, 5 days a week, with lunch, based on the guidance from the CDC, and the mask wearing. Talked about the social emotional plan, which is a priority in keeping all of the students safe. There is a detailed plan for each individual school on social emotional learning. Let me just scroll down, sorry. Discuss the home schooling policy and how that relates with special education. New staff orientation, discuss the equity training for the custodial and secretarial staff with a goal of completion for September 30th. Also discuss Dr. Milowski and Ms. Philmeyer's attendance at the Dreams Project, the Nurtured Hearts program, which is a training that allows for the improvement of student performance and mental health. And they're also reaching out to 2 additional staff to get train the trainer for the district. Discuss the gifted and talented policy update and summary. Sorry, my first minutes are a little long. Discuss the enrichment and developmental support for all students in the gifted and talented program as it relates to K through 3 and intermediate. Reviewed policies with corrections, and also received a recommendation from the Personnel Committee by Michelle Bose to add to the LTPS website new teachers and staff member spotlights. Since there are 30 new members, we thought that it might be nice to give them a little spotlight on our website. Those are the minutes. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to move IS 1 through 4.
So, second.
Good. With a motion and a second, Tom, whenever you're ready.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Farmer?
Yes.
Mrs. Grover?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Van Hise?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Finance, Pepper.
Finance met on September 10th from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Tom, Dr. Kaysen, Joyce Scott, Kevin Van Hise, Greg, and myself were in attendance. And the committee would like to thank Tom, Matt Conley, and Sue Ullman for going above and beyond to get the buildings and transportation ready for the start of the school year, with deep gratitude to those who gave up their Labor Day weekend to deal with the issues caused by dampness and humidity. One of the issues we addressed was the SRO, or Class 2, for their Eggert Crossing and Route 206 issue. And Lawrence Township Police Department does not have funds to post an officer at 206 and Eggert Crossing Road. Ross and Tom will be meeting with the township manager about this topic. Tom is looking for a solution which might add students to buses not already operating at full capacity. We have IDEA, which is special ed, and American Recovery Plan money in the amount of approximately $200,000 to spend. The building use, should we open it to the public during COVID? And the committee agreed that we would reduce building use, but when the buildings are used, the guests would pay a fee for cleaning and sanitizing. The Township Rec Department and anything school-related would not pay the sanitizing fee to use the buildings. The district applied to PSE&G for a grant to replace boilers at Slackwood School and LIS, which could save the district approximately $250,000, and will hire our own architect. The committee discussed rent relief for the YMCA after-school program for this year. The after-school program is provided by Capital Y, and enrollment is down by 40%. The committee agreed to lower the rent charged for our buildings for now, but we'll revisit that later. The state health benefits plan conversion, Tom continues to monitor health benefits packages for staff, and we discussed bus driver compensation. And with that, I would like to move SBM 1 through 10.
Second.
With a motion and a second, Tom, whenever you're ready.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Farmer?
Yes.
Mrs. Grover?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Van Hise?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We'll turn to our last opportunity for public input.
Do you want me to do new business?
Sure, that'd be great. Yeah, seeing none, we'll close our public input and we'll move on to new business.
Okay. You'll find new business listed here. Additionally, along with personnel, you'll see adding substitutes, assistants, substitutes for assistants, passing the trash confirmations, destination programs, as well as initial appointments for after-school remote learning support, which we spoke about earlier. And with that, I'd like to move NB1 through NB18.
Second.
With a motion and a second, Tom, whenever you're ready.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Farmer?
Yes.
Mrs. Grover?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Van Hise?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Great, thank you. With that, we'll thank everyone for coming out again this evening and wishing everyone a wonderful, happy, healthy, and exciting school year. So with that, we will entertain our last motion of the evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.